guys, what's up? Welcome back here to today's edition of Intuitive Angling, and man, I appreciate you guys hanging out with me a little bit and checking the video out today. We're going to be talking about how this stupid jighead minnow is destroying the sport of bass fishing. This is something that I am sick of. I'm sick of hearing about it. I'm sick of reading about it. I'm sick of the influence it's having on the sport. I'm sick of what it has done to the sport. So I want to explain to you guys why I feel like this about the jighead minnow, because it's not just one thing. It's a plethora of things that are associated with it and everything about the thing. So we're going to get into that in today's video, and of course I'll give you my solutions to all these problems we seem to be having in the bass fishing world today. Also, guys, if you do want a real bass fishing lure and not something that's sort of fake bass fishing like jighead minnows, spinnerbaits are among the top late fall baits, guys. For the month of November and December, one of my favorite techniques is burning a spinnerbait, fishing it real fast into the surface. This is the best burning spinnerbait you can get, guys. Megabass SV3 spinnerbait. Fish head design on it, runs straight as a string as fast as you want to reel it. Hand-tied skirt, nano-coated hook. It's got a great keeper on the thing. Awesome freaking spinnerbait. So I'll put this in my Tackle Warehouse link in the description of the video if you guys like to check one out or get one through that link. And also, guys, real quick, thank you very much for everybody that is taking time to subscribe here to Intuitive Angling. Really appreciate that. If you like the content, you want to do something that's easy and free to support it, just hitting that subscribe button and hitting the like button and commenting on the videos and sharing the videos goes a long way for YouTube to push the videos out there to get them to more people. So really appreciate that. Okay, here's the stupid thing, guys. Jighead minnow comes in a lot of different shapes and forms, but it's basically just, some type of a soft plastic minnow bait, anywhere between 2 to 4 inches, with a jig head on it, usually a ball head on it. Now, this is not an attack against jighead minnows per se. It's an attack on everything that it stands for, everything that the jighead minnow has done to the sport over the last 2 or 3 years, and that's why I want to get into this today. Now, first of all, when you talk about jighead minnows and their association with spotlighting for bass or using forward-facing sonar, a lot of people miss the point of this entire, it's not even a debate, it's sort of a fight for the future of fishing, but they don't understand it, they don't comprehend it, and they miss the main points of it, because they're basically saying, oh, forward-facing sonar, jighead minnows, it's just another tool in fishing. It's, keep up with the times, Grandpa, you're gonna get left behind. You can't, just because you can see them on a spotlight machine doesn't mean they'll bite. I've heard all the bullshit. Doesn't make any difference. The whole thing about it is everything that stands around this thing. And the jighead minnow has become, it's become the symbol of forward-facing sonar and the degradation and the destruction of our sport. Anytime that I see an article, if there's some type of whatever website or whatever that has a picture of a forward-facing minnow on it, I immediately turn out. I do not want to hear anything about a forward-facing sonar minnow, I don't want to hear anything about a jighead minnow, because I know it's tied completely to forward-facing sonar. Now, I used jighead minnows before forward-facing sonar or before down imaging or live or side imaging was even a thing. I remember catching a lot of fish fishing for spotted bass, like at Lake Hartwell in Georgia, fishing a little jighead minnow, just crawling it on the bottom along point. So it's not the bait, but it's what has happened to the sport through the use of forward-facing sonar and the jighead minnow. The jighead minnow has become the #1 tournament winning bait in the country over the past 2 years, and it's become completely associated with forward-facing sonar. And another thing about that is, even though it's a small bait, they catch giant bags on it, utilizing forward-facing sonar with this particular bait. So shaking a jighead minnow has morphed this sport into something that we don't even recognize anymore. We've never seen anything like it, past this again. So here is the problem you have with it and why it's done it. #1, I'm gonna get into all the different stuff here. We've talked about some of this before, but let me tie you into why the jighead minnow is destroying the sport of bass fishing. #1, I'm gonna talk from every aspect. #1, it is destroying the tackle industry. The tackle industry is suffering right now. All these stupid tariffs that have been putting on us, which tariffs are nothing but taxes on the consumers, that's all they are. fishing tackle manufacturers are having a hard time with the tariffs, and you put this forward-facing minnow in the mix with it, where it degrades and reduces the sales of other lure categories. Traditional bass fishing lures like spinnerbaits and jigs, crankbaits, topwaters, the sales are down on all those baits significantly over the past couple of years because everybody is just using the stupid forward-facing sonar minnow with forward-facing sonar. So from an economic standpoint, it's really harming the industry, just the fact that everybody is going to a forward-facing sonar minnow. And they don't cost a whole lot. They're a Jighead or a lead head and a piece of soft plastic. Okay, the second thing with that is the sport of bass fishing. The power point of it, the magical point of bass fishing is the art form of bass fishing. And that art form in bass fishing is displayed from a diversity of techniques and skill sets, and also by specialists. So when bass fishing was great, prior to 10 years ago, the last 10 years, bass fishing, tournament fishing in particular, has just freaking went off a cliff. But prior to that, if you were around from about 1985 to the early 2000s, this is when the art form of bass fishing was showcased at its ultimate. And number one, in order to be a tournament angler, you had to do everything. If you were going to compete and qualify for championships, you had to be able to do it all. You had to fish finesse tactics, power tactics, topwater, crankbait, different types of crankbaits, jigs, soft plastic, swim baits, glide baits, every single lure category. With the diversity of water on the professional fishing circuits, you had to do it all. And not only did you have to be a very versatile angler, but you had to be a specialist, because you can't hardly win with versatility. You can only win tournaments by being a specialist. So you had to be this versatile angler, yet you had to identify with one or two techniques that you considered yourself a specialist. Like, for example, David Fritz with deep cranking, Denny Brower with flipping a jig, Tommy Biffle with flipping a jig, Zell Rowland with the pop R. Everybody, and Larry Nixon with a worm. Everybody has specialists of the techniques that they could really rely on to win, but they had to be versatile at the same time. And that created a rich environment of bass fishing that was super interesting. You had to break down seasonal patterns and movements and nuances of bass. You had to understand how different bodies of water were influenced by those seasonal patterns. You had natural lakes, you had man-made lakes, you had lakes with different levels of current in it, you had tidal rivers, you had, just a lot of different scenarios that you had to be well versed in. And that's why professional anglers didn't reach the pinnacle of their success until they got usually into their late 30s or early 40s, because it required that much time on the water to educate yourself to know that. And now we've had all that taken away from us. It's like literally, you can take somebody that's 15 years old, put them in a high school, college program, get them outfitted with forward-facing sonar, give them a handful of Jighead minnows, a Jighead minnow type setup there, and a flat-brimmed hat, and you're good to go. That's all you have to do, because all you're going to do is you're going to take this forward-facing sonar minnow. You're going to put your transducer, fan it out in front of you, your live scope transducer, and you're going to cast this stupid little Jighead minnow to fish that you can see swimming on there. And the thing about it is, like, people say, well, it's just another tool. Okay, tell me this: if you didn't have a live scope or forward-facing sonar, how many fish are you going to catch on a Jighead minnow? You just going to go out there in the middle of the lake in open water and just start fan casting this thing everywhere and start catching fish? No, you're not going to do it. The forward-facing sonar and the Jighead minnow worked in correlation together is the thing that's destroying everything about bass fishing. It's destroying the heritage and the tradition. Talked about the mystery and the magic, the unknown of fishing. You don't have anything that's not unknown, because with forward-facing sonar minnow fishing, you roll up on a point, and traditional bass fishing would tell you that you have to fish to find the fish on that point. You have no clue if there's any fish on that point. You have to fish to find them. With today's, transformative bullshit in fishing, you pull up on that point there, you scan your transducer out there. If you can't see anything, you go to the next point or the next cove mouth or creek channel or whatever until you actually see fish on your unit. and then you throw this stupid little forward-facing sonar minnow out there and harass them until they bite. And you might chase them a half mile down the lake. That is the big thing now, guys. They're taking this stupid minnow and they're finding a fish out on a point, 5 or 6 pounder, and the fish is trying to swim away from them, all the noise, the trolling motor noise and the sonar bings, and they chase them a half mile down the lake until they harass them to biting this forward-facing minnow. Is that bass fishing? Is that really where we want to be in bass fishing? Would you rather see some dude with $50,000 worth of electronics and 5 spinning rods with this thing tied on, glued to the screen, chasing that fish down the lake for a half mile? Or would you rather see, Dean Rojas getting blown up on a frog, or, Greg Hackney pitching a half-ounce jig and a reed head down at Okeechobee and pulling out a 9-pounder? Which would you rather see? I don't know anyone that's going to want to see the dude chasing them down on the jighead minnow. This is what I'm talking about, how it's destroying the aesthetics of the sport. Now, you can argue all the time about if it's depleting the fisheries and the fish populations, but regardless of the data that is inconclusive from the conservation departments, when you have a large segment of the population that are taking bass out of deeper water, and these bass are suffering from delayed barotrauma issues, there's an element of delayed mortality in bass fishing that is directly linked to this bait right here and forward-facing sonar that you can't deny. So from that standpoint, guys, it comes from us at all different angles. And ultimately, this is a symbol right here. The forward-facing sonar jighead minnow is a symbol of everything that is wrong with the sport right now. And until we get this thing out of the sport to where it never wins a tournament again because forward-facing sonar is no longer a thing, this sport is going to continue to be degraded. The industry is going to suffer. The enthusiasm of the sport is going to suffer. The heritage and the tradition of the sport is going to suffer. And most important, the art form, the true art form of bass fishing is going to suffer because you are no longer an artist. Do not call yourself an artist if you catch fish with the stupid forward-facing sonar jighead minnow. You are not an artist at all. All you're doing is something that is fake and artificial and requires no intuitive primal skills, no instinctual skills whatsoever, which makes that bass fishing. And I get people all the time, probably the most common comment that I get on my social media feeds and my YouTube channel about, a lot of my people that follow my channel, they can't stand forward-facing sonar. And they always say to me, it's like, Randy, look, I want to see some forward-facing sonar fanatic get in the boat with you, and you guys both have no electronics. You don't have a single piece of electronics on the boat. You don't have a GPS, you don't have anything. All you have is your rod and reel, and you got a trolling motor and a boat, and we'll see who does the best. Now, that's not about me, but the point is what they're talking about is they miss that art form of fishing, the skills that are required to find fish from an instinctual, primal, intuitive level, which inherently, that's what fishing is. Fishing is inherently a mysterious, magical, unknown, wonderful sport on a sporting, recreational level. Now, it's different if you're a commercial fisherman or if you were a Native American Indian 1,000 years ago trying to survive, to keep your tribe fed. But recreational bass fishing over the past 100 years, it's not that anymore. There are rules and ethics that you have to adhere to keep the sport intact and to keep the integrity of the sport intact. And this stupid thing right here is undermining every bit of it right there. So don't fall for all the sane washing and all the whitewashing bullshit on forward-facing sonar and all this type of stuff. You're going to hear these podcasters and these guys that don't know any better that talk this whole thing. They try to normalize it. They think that, hey, it's here to stay. You're going to have to accept it. You're going to have to learn it. It's just another tool. It doesn't make the fish bite. You still got to figure out how to get them to bite. They're going to come up with so many bullshit excuses to try to justify something that they know is total bullshit. So don't get sucked into it, guys. Fight the good fight. Come over here and join the fight. Get on the right side of history here, and let's get this thing out of the sport because it's doing nothing but making it suck. So anyway, guys, thanks for tuning in. I appreciate you guys coming by, and we'll check in later.